Welcome! Today we examine It's My Safe Space, the life-saving role of the internet in the lives of transgender and gender-diverse youth. Please copy the YouTube link or scan the QR code and review the TED Talk video, How to Talk and Listen to Transgender People by Jackson Bird. This study situates itself within sobering empirical realities. Transgender and gender-diverse TGD youth experience disproportionately high rates of depression, victimization, and suicidality. These disparities are not inherent to identity. Rather, they emerge from systemic stigma and structural cisnormativity. The authors ground their work in two theoretical frameworks. First, minority stress theory explains how chronic exposure to discrimination, rejection, and internalized transphobia produces cumulative psychological harm. Second, the interpersonal theory of suicide identifies two core interpersonal risk factors: thwarted belongingness and perceived burdensomeness. When youth feel they do not belong anywhere and believe they are a burden to others, suicide risk increases dramatically. The study asks a powerful question. If offline environments intensify minority stress, can online environments mitigate it? Discussion questions. 1. According to minority stress theory, why are TGD youth at elevated risk for psychological distress? Answer: because they experience chronic identity-based stressors such as discrimination, rejection, and internalized stigma that accumulate over time. 2. What are the two interpersonal drivers of suicide risk identified in Joiner's theory? Answer: thwarted belongingness and perceived burdensomeness. 3. How might family rejection intensify suicide risk within this framework? Answer: it increases isolation, lack of belonging, and may foster feelings of being a burden. The data for this study come from Project HashQuery, a large mixed methods online study of LGBTQ youth. For this analysis, the authors focused on 260 TGD youth between ages 14 and 22. Using grounded theory methodology, the researchers analyzed written narratives describing the role of the internet in participants' lives. Notably, youth were not asked about suicidality, yet many spontaneously described the internet as life-saving or their saving grace. This organic emergence strengthens the validity and gravity of the findings. Grounded theory allowed themes to emerge inductively from participants' own language rather than being imposed by prior assumptions. Discussion questions. 1. Why is grounded theory appropriate for this type of inquiry? Answer: it allows themes to emerge directly from participant experiences without imposing pre-existing theoretical categories. 2. Why is it significant that youth were not directly asked about suicidality? Answer: it allows themes to emerge directly from participant experiences without imposing pre-existing theoretical categories. At the center of the article is a conceptual model depicting online environments as affirmative virtual spaces. These are spaces where youth can present authentically, often for the first time. Within these environments, 5 curative socio-emotional and interpersonal processes emerge: escape from stigma, belonging, confidence, hope, and giving back. These processes collectively strengthen a desire to live. Authenticity is key. Many youths reported that offline contexts required concealment or suppression of identity. Online, they were able to exist openly and without fear of immediate punishment. Discussion questions. 1. What is meant by an affirmative virtual space? Answer: an online environment where TGD youth can present authentically and receive validation rather than stigma. 2. Why might authenticity itself function as a protective factor? Answer: Because identity suppression increases distress, while authentic expression supports psychological integration and self-worth. Many participants described hostile offline environments, including bullying, family rejection, religious condemnation, and threats of violence. The internet served as refuge. It provided psychological distance from chronic stress and allowed youth to regulate emotions in safety. This was not pathological avoidance. Rather, it was adaptive coping, temporary removal from environments that were emotionally or physically unsafe. Discussion questions. 1. How does online escape function as a resilience mechanism rather than avoidance? Answer. It provides emotional safety and reduces exposure to chronic stress, allowing for stabilization and coping. 2. Why is emotional safety foundational to mental health? Answer. Because without safety, the nervous system remains in threat mode, limiting growth and integration. Youth narratives overwhelmingly contrast offline isolation with online belonging. Many described being othered in schools or families. Online, they found shared language, shared interests, and shared identities. Belonging directly counters thwarted belongingness from the interpersonal theory of suicide. The shift from I to we in their narratives signals relational healing. Online belonging was interactive, not passive. Youth engaged in dialogue, fandom communities, and identity-based networks that validated their experiences. Discussion questions. 1. How does online belonging reduce suicide risk? Answer. It fulfills the fundamental need for connection and reduces feelings of isolation. 2. Why is belonging especially important during adolescence? Answer. Because adolescence is a developmental stage centered on identity formation and peer affiliation. Participants described increased confidence through identity validation, learning terminology, receiving affirmation, and seeing role models. For some, simply discovering language for their experience reduces shame. Importantly, confidence gained online often translated offline. Online spaces functioned as rehearsal environments for identity expression and self-acceptance. Discussion questions. 1. How does learning identity terminology contribute to psychological well-being? Answer. Naming experiences reduces confusion, internalized stigma, and self-blame. 2. Why might online affirmation generalize offline confidence? Answer. Because repeated validation strengthens core self-concept, which carries across environments. Hope emerged as a profound theme. Youth described discovering successful transitions, creative expression, activism, and thriving adults. Hope restores future orientation. Suicidality often emerges from hopelessness. Seeing others survive and thrive expands perceived life possibilities. Discussion questions. 1. Why is hope considered a critical protective factor against suicide? Answer. Because hopelessness fuels suicidal ideation, while hope restores perceived possibility and future orientation. 2. How do representation and role models foster resilience? Answer. They normalize survival and demonstrate attainable pathways forward. As youth healed, many began supporting others. They offered peer counseling, created content, and engaged in advocacy. Giving back created meaning and empowerment. This process directly counters perceived burdensomeness. Instead of feeling like a burden, youth experience themselves as life-saving for others. Giving back also reflects post-traumatic growth, transforming suffering into service. Discussion questions. 1. How does giving back counteract perceived burdensomeness? Answer. It reinforces one's value and impact on others. 2. Why might helping others strengthen one's own mental health? Answer: it fosters purpose, agency, and meaning making. The study challenges deficit-based views of social media. While online spaces can pose risks, for these youth they were protective, affirming, and transformative. For social workers, the implications are clear. We must create offline environments that replicate the core elements youth found online: belonging, authenticity, validation, safety, and hope. Clinicians must explore what online communities provide rather than reflexively pathologizing digital engagement. The deeper question remains: if youth describe the internet as life-saving, what does that reveal about the failures of offline institutions? Thank you.